Hello and welcome to another Terrain with Tom. So this time I want to show you how I would go about approaching basing an area terrain piece for Warhammer 40,000. And the reason I do this, in the rule book it states area terrain, which is great. So if you've got that on the board, you know, what is it? Me and my friend, we play like an imaginary line, things like that. But I find it a lot easier to have a defined base area, okay, and then there's no ifs or buts. Your models are in that area, they're getting cover. Yeah, simple as. So to do that, we're going to use some of the terrain that we built in the previous video, and we're going to base it. To do that, we're going to use plasticard. Now this is 1.5mm thick plasticard. You can get it off eBay. It's a couple of quid a sheet. It's a flexible coated surface, which has a protective surface on it, which we're going to remove, rid of that. And then this essentially, because it's plastic, we can use our existing glues and so on and so forth to stick to this. Lots of people use it for modelling and things like that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set down my plasticard. And I need to really decide on the surface area that we are going to put our ruins on. And the easiest way to do that, I'm going to get a ruin, I'm going to line it up. I'm going to line it up to the corner, because I know this is an A4 sheet. Okay, so why not use the lines that are already there? So if I show you that way, and it's, there's no great trick to this. I'm lining up the corner of the actual model to the plastic card as best I can. Okay, so that's going to be one of my defined corners. I'm going to take the secondary piece, and I think, how do I actually want this to look? How do I want it to be in game? Okay, so if I spin that one around, I want it to be straight down one side. What sort of area do I want? So if we take our secondary part, and I'm going to think, well, I want it to be reasonably sized, not enormous, but I want it to also have an entrance here, perhaps, which could have been a doorway, and then an open area here. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that as an area. I think that's quite a good surface. I now take a metal rule, and I'm going to go up to the side, so I'm happy with my distance. Okay, and that is going to be the surface area that I'm going to mark my miniature on. Okay, so now take away, make sure we're lined up. So I've got a really handy cutting mat here, which just makes this a bit easier. And take your time with this, guys, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be the best you can. And now I'm coming across with a pen, and I'm marking out my line. Okay, now when I then go back to this, it's giving me a base area, yeah? And again, it doesn't need to be perfect. It is a ruin at the end of the day, but we just want it to look relatively pretty cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a width of a ruler off this edge. Okay, so I don't have an enormous piece of area terrain. It just needs to be big enough. Maybe get a unit in there. Maybe big enough, but not big enough to fit a 20 blob in there. Do you see what I mean? So it's like across there with a pen. And this area is going to be where our terrain will sit. Okay, let's put the pieces aside. And I'm now going to come in and cut this area out. Okay, we're going to be using a Stanley knife for this with a retractable blade. Okay, with a new sharp blade on there. Now, bear in mind, blades are sharp, they're dangerous, and you can hurt yourself. So do please take care. If you're one of our younger gamers, please get an adult to help you with this area. Okay, so Let me just set the camera back up, I'll come back to you. Okay, so I have my ruler lined up along the line I want to cut, and I'm spacing my fingers along it. Using a metal ruler. Okay, safety is really important in here because we are using blades. Got my blade out, I'm lining it up, and I don't have to apply a lot of pressure. I'm going along. I'm not pressing and pressing and pressing, I'm letting the knife do the work. Okay? So I've gone along 5 or 6 times there. And because it's plastic hard, this is probably going to be difficult to see, but it's giving you sort of like a gully. And one of the things you can do is actually snap this now. Okay? Let it go on its own. There we go. Okay? One part gone. We're going to be keeping the offcut to base it on the miniature as well. Okay? So I now need to take this area off, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I'm carefully lining up my blade and my ruler, making sure that I'm not going to cut myself. Okay? Blade out. Okay, now I'm not applying a lot, so I'm letting the knife do the work for me. I'm cutting that gully in. Okay? We're cutting. Do multiple little cuts rather than one heavy cut. The more pressure you apply with a knife, the more chance you've got of slipping, hurting yourself or somebody else. Okay? Always retract your blade as well. Tip. There we go. Until we've created our guide rail there, so to speak. Throw that component away. There we go. So now I have my area of terrain. And if we've measured this correctly, we're going to be able to set up along the edges. Okay. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. Now, because this is plastic card, we can actually use our plastic cement. I use citadel glue just because I like the applicator. You can use any glue, guys, it doesn't really matter. Plastic cement will melt the components together, particularly if they're both plastic, and it'll just give you a stronger joint. Okay, so I'm going all the way along. Not bathing it in glue, but I'm giving it enough so that it's going to line up. Okay, and now I want to line up along this edge here. Okay, so that's where we measured it to. Bit of pressure downwards. That's one side done. Now we're coming in here, and we're going to go on the other edge. Okay. Glue in dots along the contact surface. And think about what we said, we wanted sort of like that doorway, didn't we, so that the models can get in and out. You can still, you're in area trim, but I like to be able to actually get to a miniature. That makes sense. There we go. So that's going to be our area. Obviously we're not going to stop there, but at this stage now, we need to let that thoroughly dry so it's nice and adhered to the surface. Okay, so all the parts are all now set. I've added some extra interest like a hatch and one of the pipes to give it a bit of rigidity, and that's quite a nice sort of blob of terrain, but obviously we don't just want a shiny surface. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in with some sand. This is wooden scenic medium ballast, it's called, like a dry sand. And obviously to stick that, we've got our PVA, good old fashioned PVA glue. You don't need expensive brands of it, things like that. The PVA is PVA, you know. And we're just going to apply that on with our terrain brush. Okay, we're going to round the areas where I've added the extra interest. And we're just going to get it into all of the all of the gaps, and the thick air, don't water this down, just get in there with a thick PVA mix. Doesn't matter if we get it on some of the bits that we've put on there. And the reasons being obviously is once PVA is dry, you can actually break off the sand that you don't want in certain locations. Right up to into the edges there. I'm getting really sort of into the terrain piece there because it'll just all sort of bond it to the actual surface. Okay, I'm going to the edges. Make sure you get as much down as you can with this. Yeah, the more down, the more that we're going to have to sand adhere into the surface. Okay, doesn't have to be neat. All the way to the edge, into those corners. Yeah. And you don't have to be sort of super fast with this either, because PVA will sort of becomes more tacky as it starts to dry, which just means that the sand will adhere quicker to it. Okay, coming in here, nice sort of areas around the edge. And I'm not being super neat with this because at the end of the day I'm going for like a water-on mechanic sort of strong old sort of look. And I'm just going to make sure that I also get in to the edges along these sort of areas. Okay, if I hit the back, I'm going around, just covering the full top surface with PVA. Okay, getting in there with our brush, making sure that we're giving a full coating for our ballast to stick to. Okay, looking there, just check I've got everywhere, I'm happy with it. I'm going to put a little bit more in there because a bit of sort of undulation in the surface is fine. It's like we said, it's been bombed out, shelled out, ruined, whatever you want to call it. Okay, up to the sides there. That's our PVA. Now I'm coming in with the ballast. Obviously, you know, I've got a mat down here. Put a mat down on your surface because the easiest way to do ballast is literally just to tip it in. Okay, I'm looking for a fine sprinkling all over the flat areas. Okay, going into those areas there, turning the terrain piece on the edges, on the sides, and to make sure I get under the pipes, things like that, I'm going to tip it again, and then knock off any excess. Okay, so that's our first sort of coat PVA. Obviously around there we might need a bit more, we can come back to that and finish it off. So once that's dry, we'll do the finishing touches and that's ready to be primed. And there you have it. So we have a fully based terrain piece. PVA is still drying. When that's dry, all we'll do is give that a really heavy black undercoat with a spray can primer, and that'll really help adhere it down. So there you go, that's based in terrain, and you can obviously match this to your table, your gaming surface, or any of your choices. Thank you for watching. I hope they've picked up a few tips. As always, there'll be more terrain videos coming soon. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always guys, happy hobbying.